Good afternoon, dear friends. Let's talk about the Mongol Tatars, or even worse. The Tatar-Mongol advanced history lovers know that there have never been any Mongol Tatars, because Mongols and Tatars are different peoples and they were blood enemies of each other. Actually, I told you about this last time in your conversations and Mongolian history, but in fact, even more advanced specialists in the field of history, perhaps I will tell you that they were like that. But others are not, as readers of school textbooks imagine them to be. So what were they like? Who are the Mongol Tatars? You know, the simplest explanation is that they were invented by historians nor modern historians much earlier in the 13th century Chinese ambassador and spy of Mingin, who traveled to insert Genghis Khan into in 1220. He titled his essay not something, but it was, that is, the most complete description of the Mongol Tatars of men before the Mongol Tatars. This was the first pronounced combination in the 13th century, and at the same time, it appeared in other places. But one would think that the Chinese had their own ability to formulate their point of view. They imposed this version on other peoples. But I cannot understand how the Armenian chronicler Kirakas and Hansa Kesir, who also used the word combination Mongol Tatars stolen in the same 13th century, could have recognized Menkhan's work. A well-known expert on Mongols speaks of numerous cases of this phrase in Russian chronicles. I read at the time when I was engaged in this topic is all about the new Russian chronicles. It's not difficult because there are actually 4 chronicles that describe the Mongol Tatar invasion. The first to Novgorod ones, Ipativskaya and Lavrentivskaya, and in the Logical Chronicle, as proved by experts on ancient texts. The page describing the Mongol invasion was torn out and replaced with Banal stamps. Well, as they actually wrote then, we don't have this phrase there for 3 years, but the Mongols are constantly called Mongols or Tatars, and Tatars more often than Mongols. And the same picture is exactly the same. All the other people who saw this invasion with their own eyes, Plano Carpini, Rubruk, the Hungarian monk Julian, those who visited Mongolian Berry, after all, Marco Polo, they all write either mangoes on bread by Tatars, or Mongols called Tatars, and somehow like that, all in one bunch of years. Our famous specialist nomad years stolen together with Skrinnikov. They wrote a whole article about it. Very deeply thought about it. They argued that initially, of course, this phrase did not appear among the Chinese. The Mongols themselves used it anyway. The participants of the conquest themselves. Because there is no other way to explain that this Mongol Tatar as interchangeable words spread so far across Eurasia is impossible. If they did not do it themselves, the Tatars, that is, the Mongols or Moguls, whom I myself will remember, in short, they themselves thought so, but there is, confirm it. There is the same Mai Hyung very categorically writes in his own to Bayer, I Hong personally noticed how their temporary replacement Emperor Gavan, that is, one of the Mahuli state, called himself we are Tatars every time. All their officials and commander also called themselves we are Tatars. They don't even know if they are Mongols and what kind of name it is. There is such a direct, categorical and unambiguous indication of the person who or personally saw it all. In the Mongolian headquarters, however, there is an equally direct and categorical statement by Anka that the Mongols in all cases called themselves, specifically emphasized, being the son of the heir of the Golden Horde Konbachu of the K variety, that he extols his name Mongol May above any name. They do not want to be called Tatars, and Tatars would be other peoples, but practically like modern people, but also how to figure it all out. So the stolen Skrinnikov, I believe, that first the Mongol Tatars. It was such a geographically specific name, which is caused by the fact that from indigenous Mongolia on the Amur, the Mongols migrated to the steppe, and it was such a great Mongolia. But you know how Little Russia and Great Russia were defined in the import of Great Russia there. Little Greece, Great Greece in Sicily in southern Italy, which means Brittany and Great Britain. Brittany in France, the Peninsula and Great Britain, respectively, on a large island in a hotel, but also so on. According to the same principle, the Mongols who resettled in the Mongolian steppe, they met some Tatars there and first. What did the Mongols who live in the Tatar lands of the Mongol Tatars call themselves? In order to distinguish themselves from those Mongols who remained in their historical homeland. Somehow you know that I something is not sure that this was actually the case, because the same stolen Skrinnikov notes quite reasonably that there is not a single case mentioned by sources when Mongols would call themselves Mongol Tatars, and even Mongols who are called themselves from those Mongols who remained in their historical homeland. Somehow you know that I something is not sure that this was actually the case, because the same stolen Skrinnikov notes quite reasonably that there is not a single case mentioned by sources when Mongols would call themselves Mongol Tatars, and even Mongols who are called. Where did it through Yakutia make sure you how they are different people with one face hot, as Turks on the other hand greater real, but this vital if you want to live more. Not only the Turks you're poking my ears not mean to do Russian princes. Why not just go at the forefront of Tatar troops to smash the Hungarians? But on the one hand of course the Hungarians could not stand with the other no. When you're there in the back looks guard Subutai Bagata you know that a blow undefeated, coming in any time to bash your head in will be here to serve for Westinghouse always enough at all times yes. Especially in those times when ideas the national state is simply absent on concepts about the people who needs to serve. She did not exist even more in Russia and is composed of conglomerate, different origin of the tribes and peoples recently realized that they to be one of the Russian state lived to this, but nevertheless, this is as a few you're close to understanding the Tatars were actually, or it was not easier to say. What were the Mongols? And here is the same Muhalita Wang of the state governor. Genghis Khan in North China is famous for commander. He was a Mongol. He origin Hala are outlived era this tribe, which has its origin from Alanda and Baltic and on board. And very Gamora, he is not yet Mongol, but on the other hand, the Mongols still there something was inside compartment was the protection of the Mongols. That the truth is not run clean the Mongols, and was Harlequin their other Mongol here hall. And so happy Mango, neuron those who Genghis Khan around this Bajig's mouth it's famous, all who associated with him. They but as most Mongol boos might in dealing with the Chinese. To remember that he is no run not at wish and need all that to say this is tribal. Differences in spite of all the reforms Genghis Khan in Mongolia she remembered. And the Mongols are laser people accustomed to generic companies. Because the generation ancestors is considered to be the origin. And they are not forget 20 years of power of Genghis Khan. What are they now? No barge James do not barlis not these same soldiers live and any signs, I don't raid. And they are now named Mongols. And all Mongol, the tens or hundreds of thousands, aren't there the thousand is that no. Of course, it is all preserved in 2013 when Minhon traveled the rate of Genghis Khan. It all remained when the Mongol Empire arrives, and in its place will come a new in the century. New relationship in this old glad tribal division Mongolia swim out, and even the way we live and which is here generally. In 13-14 centuries was not seen, and not heard as if after the defeat their times of Genghis Khan cashier services among thousand of his army, they disappeared suddenly in the 16th century. A third of the population lived in the Mongol Empire. Mahu Lidal but then, there will be a whole dynasty of Jil and species in Azerbaijan and Iran. And they will rule there for 400. We kick off even the Mongolian tribes have spread far. And here's such a thing aren't, but as in the Soviet Union it was that we were all Soviet people. The Soviet people were a new historical community, but everyone remembers that. He is a Yakut, Tatar, Russian, Ukrainian, and so on. In the 13th century, under Genghis Khan, the Mongols had the same story. Genghis Khan ordered everyone to be called Mongols. But people are people. They remembered that yes, we are all Mongols. But at the same time I am Baragin, and here he is Balis, and this one you live in general. Subodai Bogota, and the node is preserved. And in the future the process of ethnogenesis of peoples went a little wrong as Genghis Khan planned. He failed to unite all the nomads of the Great Steppe in a single Mongolian, such a great the state, and by whom the English Ulus of the Great Mongolian State, or as in Chinese the Google domain, did not succeed, in addition to the fact that the Mongolian people themselves were formed after his campaigns. We say that in the 12th century ethnogenesis took place into four pieces, into different Mongolian tribes and Huracan peoples, and above all, well, not only did they participate there, but others also participated there. They were the ones who disobeyed Genghis Khan's rule. They went to Yakutia, far beyond the reach of the Mongol hordes, and lived freely there, where they formed a new Urian High people which remained a special tribe until the 20th century, and the current Russian Defense Minister Shoigu is a representative of this Ryanakan peoples. And above all, well, not only did they participate there, but others also participated there. They were the ones who disobeyed Genghis Khan's rule. They went to Yakutia, far beyond the reach of the Mongol hordes, and lived freely there, where they formed a new Urian High people which remained a special tribe until the 20th century, and the current Russian Defense Minister Shoigu is a representative of this Aryan High Sky, or otherwise the Tuvinian people. He is of course Mongolian, but still he is a different Mongolian. It is not the same people who are in the energy as the Kamaks are also Mongolian, but they are not like those who live in Mongolia there. Then there is an important stage 1 genesis here.